You're listening to Zap Night, a video game review podcast. Join your hosts as we review video games from all systems and all genres. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Zap Night. I'm your host, Danny.
I'm your co-host, Kaylie.
Today we are on episode 83, and we are talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode INTERmission. This is the DLC for the Final Fantasy VII Remake that came out on the PS5. I think that one's called Intergrade.
Yeah.
So, before we really dig in here, I wanted to clarify something that Lori brought this up while I was talking to her about this. The question is, why are you doing a DLC as a full podcast episode? And my answer to her, and my answer to any of you who are wondering the same thing, basically the game is contained within itself. So I consider it a game in itself. It does, obviously it reuses assets from the original game, and some of that is kind of hard to judge on. But remember that this is our experience of playing this DLC version of the game. And I feel like if we were to do DLC of, say, like Pokemon, it would be the same. It would be a similar experience of its own game contained within itself as an add-on to the original game. And I mean, really, Yuffie, this Yuffie DLC is kind of a good example of that, because it's got its own story. It's got its own, like, you know, it in a sense, it has its own battle system to some degree. I mean, like, a lot of this stuff kind of is its own, you know, bubble. So, that's why I consider it to be its own game, and we're doing a podcast on it by itself. We did a similar thing with Final Fantasy XV's DLC, where we did an episode kind of containing all the DLC in one episode. You can listen to that if you want to. So, yeah, that's, to clarify, that's what's going on here. But this game was developed by Square, obviously, and it was released exclusively on the PS5 June 10th of this year, which is 2021. I didn't get this at all. Nope. This was all you. Yep. And I really, when this was announced, I had no desire to play it.
Yeah. And
it wasn't really that I had a problem with it. It was more just that, like, it was just another cash grab for Square Enix. Like, I really truly feel like it is, and I still kind of do.
Yeah.
That said, having played it now, I'm glad that I did, and we'll talk more about that as we go along here. But you know, it's really just, it's more for the fun of it than it is to add any deep story or lore to the game as a whole. It's really just its own contained story to just be fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that story. It takes place 2 years after the end of the Wutai War, which is kind of a big moment in the Final Fantasy VII universe. There's a lot of stuff that, like, Crisis Core deals with in that game. Final Fantasy VII talks about it a little bit. The remake talks about it a little bit. But it's a little bit more critical for Yuffie, because Yuffie comes from Wutai. And her land, from her perspective, she's the 16-year-old Wutai ninja who is very rambunctious, and she even was, like, in the war itself, helping to defend her country. And now Wutai is in this state of surrender, and has been like minimized to a tourist attraction town.
Yeah.
They don't really go into that in the game. It's just my knowledge of the history of Wutai. In any case, this DLC takes place 2 years after that. Yuffie Kitsuragi What? Go.
Kisaragi?
Oh, I thought maybe you were correcting me.
No.
Like you knew more. I don't know.
Right? I don't know.
It seems right. Kisaragi. Anyway,
Kisaragi.
she is a 16-year-old Wutai ninja who travels to Midgar in search of Shinra's ultimate materia that she believes they're developing somewhere in the Shinra headquarters. She is trying to collect as much materia as she can so that she can build Wutai back to its former glory and fight back against Shinra. She walks through the Midgar slums in search of Avalanche and this partner that she's meeting with in Midgar. It's funny, while she's walking through the slums, she comments on how dirty Midgar is.
Yeah.
She's like, I thought it was the city of Midgar. And she's like, more like city of trash.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, she doesn't really realize that she's in the slums. She just realizes that she just thinks that she's in Midgar, but not knowing the dynamics of Midgar. She follows some Moogle posters throughout the slums and makes her way to a clinic in the Sector 7 slum area. The clinic turns out to be a base for an Avalanche cell, where she meets up with I'm gonna butcher some of these names, but they're irrelevant.
Yeah.
Neo, Billy Bob, and Polk. And then their leader is Zirj.
She kept saying it, and I still...
After she said it 100 times, I still had no idea.
Zirj or something.
Yeah,
to that
I think
effect.
you're right. And she finds out that her partner, Sonon Kuzabe...
Kusakabe.
All right, well, that sounds better
right.
than mine. He arrived a few days prior... but when she finally is able to meet up with him, they set their sights on infiltrating the Shinra building, trying to get to the basement where they believe all of the juicy stuff happens in the basement. Sunan tells Yuffie about his status as a former student of Yuffie's father, Gudo, and Yuffie is not a fan of her father because ever since the end of the war, he's kind of turned into a drunk. But she still recognizes Sunan as a respectable person because of his training. And also her father was a former leader of Wutai. I don't know if that's relevant really, but it's something to throw in there. In any case, they set their sights for Midgar, but they realize that they need an ID to be able to ride the train. So they hunt down Zirj. Anyway, he's supposed to have the IDs to be able to board the train. However, he's currently missing and is on the run from some Shinra soldier guys. Yuffie and Sonon help him and fight off the Shinra to acquire the IDs to be able to ride the train to the Midgar headquarters building. Once they make their way to the building, they sneak onto the elevator, trying to get their way to the lower levels, and that's when they run into Scarlet. Scarlet being the head of Shinra's weapon development. She instantly recognizes them as, Wutai people, and she kind of guides them through. She
guides them through the facility.
Yeah, she misleads them to go to this weapons testing facility area.
She kind of collects data on them.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Basically just tormenting them for the fun of it. With different monsters and machines that are in the weapons development research. Yuffie and Sonon, they fight their way through the testing facility and eventually fight Scarlet herself, where she gets to test out her newly developed mech suit. They end up winning, and they interrogate her, where she tells them that there really is no ultimate materia in Midgar, that all of that was set aside for the plan to drop the Sector 7 plate. Yuffie doesn't really understand what's going on, and Scarlet ends up leading them into this like combat testing or this combat simulator. And she cranks it up to the highest level, which is like ultimate pain or something like that. They end up escaping the simulator by destroying a projector, and when they leave, they find themselves surrounded by deep ground soldiers. Now, deep ground, for people who are Final Fantasy VII fans, they are a soldier group that live in like a lab underneath Midgar, and you first hear about them in Dirge Cerberus. So, fun fact.
Yeah.
The team fights off the soldiers, and they come across another testing room with a bunch of other dead Shinra soldiers laying all over, with a bunch of purple glitter scattered everywhere.
Glitter.
It is. It's purple, beautiful glitter. They then come face to face with Nero, and he is sucking the energy from other soldiers in the room. And as you play the game, you kind of get bits and pieces of who Nero is to some degree. He's like some maniac type, like Shinra, almost like the soldier, but like before the soldier program started. And they're like these experiments, really.
Yeah. I think it's, if you like, I haven't played Dirge Cerberus in a while, but
Yeah,
I
me
want to
neither.
say it's a little more aligned with Dirge Cerberus. So you probably know more about it. But as far as playing this and not with that in mind, it is just kind of this crazy experiment that you're facing now.
Yeah. And well, what's weird about this is they're name dropping these people like Weiss and Nero, and if you've played Dirge Cerberus, you kind of get a hint of, oh, I know who these people are to some degree, but like me, I recognize them as these deep ground people, but like it seemed random. Like they kind of just threw it in here out of nowhere as a fun nod to Dirge Cerberus. And to some degree, this also like validates that Dirge Cerberus is canon to the story.
You know, they had hints of Dirge Cerberus like relevance stuff in the original or the remake of this game, the original
the main game,
which, I mean, to me, it's a nice way to kind of tie a little bit more together, more tightly. And
I'm sure that that's kind of where they're heading, is they're trying to tie all the games together in some way. So they come across Nero, and he's sucking the life force from the soldier with some of his mysterious glitter power. The Shinra who are trying to control Nero loses their grip on him, and Nero escapes and begins killing literally everyone. Yuffie and Sonon try to escape, but they end up coming face to face with him, and they have to fight him off. They do win, and Nero becomes unconscious. But as Yuffie and Sonon are trying to escape through an elevator, Nero wakes up and attacks the team with his glitter amazingness. Sorry, I have to use glitter. It's amazing.
Very strong.
The glitter is strong with him, yeah.
It was very glittery.
Sonon shoves Yuffie into the elevator, urging her to move on, and Nero kills him to death. And the elevator closes and Yuffie gets away. You do get a little snippet of Sonon's backstory, and through the game and through this like segment you kind of get bits and pieces as you go along. Basically, Sonon is a Wutai warrior from the war as well. His sister was killed when a Shinra mechanical robot goes crazy, and she shoves Sonon out of the gunfire and ends up dying.
So it's kind of like a parallel to that.
Yeah, like
Yuffie.
He's
self-sacrificing, shoving her out of the way.
And then you get this like little clip of him with him meeting his sister again and, wishing Yuffie good luck or whatever. In any case, that was kind of irrelevant to anything, to be honest, like the whole story. Anyway, Yuffie makes it out of the Shinra building and watches as the Sector 7 plate plummets to the ground, destroying and killing countless amount of people. She's devastated that Shinra would do this, and she is determined to fight back by stealing all the materia in the land and restore. Again, same deal.
Well,
trying to help Wutai.
We also, well, I guess you kind of did touch on it, that she did find out, though, that there is no ultimate materia right now. So she kind of has no reason to stay.
Right, yeah. And that was something that Scarlet had told her before Scarlet got away.
So this whole mission was a complete waste of time and energy.
Yeah, literally. So, as an end scene, you see Yuffie leaving Midgar on a chocobo. She figures she kind of is talking to herself, and she figures that she's going to have to recruit other people for her mission if she's going to make any progress, which kind of, if you know the story of Final Fantasy VII, you can feel that vibe that they're trying to really merge that character of Final Fantasy VII Remake Yuffie with the Final Fantasy VII Yuffie that we all know. In any case, then you get a cut to Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and Red. Oh, and Barrett. I forgot to write them down on my notes. And they're walking from Midgar to Calm. And
they catch a ride with Chocobo Bill.
That was so amazing. It was so amazing.
It was adorable.
Like, as soon as I saw Chocobo Bill, my first thought was Sid from Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah,
I'm like, I know that's not Sid.
That's what I thought too.
And then, they showed his cap and it was Buffalo Bill. I'm like, oh, I know who this is. I was so excited.
Yes.
I was so excited.
Chocobo Bill.
And then they cut to a stupid part with Zack, who makes his way.
Stupid part.
You
wrote it in your notes.
I did write it in my notes.
Stupid part with Zack.
He's entering Midgar, and he makes his way to Aerith's church, where he is preparing to meet with her, and he bursts open the doors, and Aerith is nowhere to be found. Instead, it's nothing but a whole bunch of survivors from the plate who have taken refuge within the church.
Did you say Buffalo Bill?
Did I say Buffalo Bill? I meant Chocobo Bill, obviously.
It's the buffalo version of chicken buffalo sauce.
Well, no, I think Buffalo Bill's an actual
Oh, no, I know, but
okay.
I was just saying. Anyway,
what'd you think of the story, Kaylie?
It was okay. I liked
Agreed.
it. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 out of 10 as well.
I think that it was a good story for Yuffie, because they're trying to tie it together. It was a good reason to kind of have her in Midgar, I suppose. The Sonon stuff was, I don't know. I liked his character. I did not care for his story at all.
I liked his character model.
Yeah.
But that was it? I didn't care for him at all.
I definitely feel like it was preparing us for when you fight with Sid as a Dragoon.
Oh, yeah. He absolutely is a character model. I put that in my notes, too. But yeah, as soon as I found out that she was going to be with a companion, I knew that he was going to die. Before playing the game, just the trailers that I had seen, I'm like, well, he's going to die.
Yeah.
Because Yuffie's on her own when you meet Yuffie in the main game, and there's no way they're going to add this extra character to the main story of 7. It would make no sense.
The thing is,
though, knowing Final Fantasy VII Remake, they could do whatever the heck they want. So
the thing is, I personally felt like the ending, it wasn't that it was a bad ending. It was not very I don't want to say it was anticlimactic, but it just didn't have like this awe at the end. Like even the plate dropping would have been great if you actually watched the destruction, but all you see is Yuffie's face as there's like flames and stuff. I kind of wish
you see her like crumple to the ground
Yeah.
as she's like looking into the flames.
I don't
But yeah,
know.
there's nothing like, I don't know.
I feel like even Sonon's death, it just
They tried to make it this huge moment, and like you barely knew the character anyway, and
I think-
he just
I
don't
think
know.
the way they chose to kill him with Nero was not the way. It just was kind of weird. In fact, it was more creepy than anything, and maybe they're gonna do something with that later. I don't know, but it.
I felt like I mean, okay, so honestly, the story as a whole is irrelevant to the main story of Final Fantasy VII. Like, regardless of how you look at it, like, if you didn't play this DLC, it would make no impact to the main game whatsoever. And that's the right way to do DLC, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
This is supposed to be an additional content that is
as
separate from the main game.
as this as its own body, as its own meat, his story was still irrelevant.
Agreed. I fully agree.
And, you know, he keeps talking about his sister, and at one point, halfway through, because we played this on a few separate days, like, days in between, and at one point I was like, wait, who is that? Is that his wife? No, it was his sister. I don't know. I did like him. He was okay. It's just his story was just kind of bland, and Yuffie was the star. Like, she was the shining star of this whole game.
She was supposed to be.
Which makes sense, yes.
She was supposed to be the star.
It's-
And she was. And I feel like as a character, she grew on me a lot through this game.
He did not compliment her at all.
No. He didn't even, like, mirror her in
Yeah.
any way. Like, there wasn't any...
I would have liked...
It would have been... Honestly, it would have been way more interesting if she was... Not that it makes any canon sense, but if she was a little bit older and he was a little bit younger, to have kind of a chemistry
Yeah.
together, just like subtle, but like this common, hey, we got a thing, and then have this death be this like, oh my gosh, oh no. But no, it was just like, and then he died. And then like Nero made no sense, and Deep Ground they threw in there just like as a nod to people who played.
I don't know.
Like I felt like there was no relevance to any of it.
I don't know. The deep ground stuff, I feel like I'm okay with. I guess it's just... Personally, I feel like the ending should have been just... I don't know. The ending was not there.
The Sonon ending stuff.
Just in general,
Yeah.
like, it just kind of was which, again, it can't be this huge... You can't have a huge climax because, of course, it's not the main game, and you're still playing, the main game is still going on the side. It's just, I feel like they could have done better, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, which I know you feel about this too, this, like, individual cell of Avalanche was so irrelevant and pointless, and they gave the characters names, they gave them their own voice actors, and they were pointless.
They were there just to be there. Like, they...
It makes sense to a degree, because that the Avalanche that you're with in the main game is its own... They are regarded as extremists, even. So it makes sense that there's other cells of Avalanche, but it's just... They put such a strange importance on them to not even be in the game.
To me, it
Barely.
feels like this group of Avalanche was just like a couple kids who were like, and
absolutely,
us too.
Yeah.
And then like they made no difference to anything, and they didn't really they weren't making any impact on anything. So like, what were they?
What I think is funny, they were in the same sector with the other members of Avalanche. It would have even made more sense if we were in a completely different sector and visited, or this is our temporary headquarters. I don't know. It seemed weird.
That said, though, because they were in Sector 7, you got to see like a different perspective of the main game.
Yeah.
And that was really cool.
That was really cool.
You got to
yes.
see like Barrett and Tifa for a little bit. Like, so the game takes place after the Sector 1 bombing, and
You lose Cloud.
right, no, it's after the Sector 1 bombing. Cloud comes back to Sector 7, meets up with Tifa, and they decide to go to do the next mission, Sector 5 or whatever. While they're gone is when Yuffie shows up. And Yuffie shows up and is doing stuff in Sector 7, and then you see Barrett and Tifa come down after losing Cloud.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're kind of talking amongst themselves like, he'll be fine. We'll see him again. He's a lot tougher than he seems. And Tifa's, you know, kind of distraught, as she should be. And then, like, that's kind of it. They kind of leave it open-ended, and then you hear about, you know, potential destruction in Sector 7,
Right.
that, you know, obviously Scarlet reveals that the plate's gonna fall. It's neat to see this, like, alternate perspective
Yeah,
of the
absolutely.
game that you already know so well. So that alone was really, really neat.
I liked the Happy Turtle
I did
inclusion.
too, yeah.
That was a nice little nod. It was just a nice little something.
It's just really funny the way that they portrayed that too, because they talk about how, like, all the characters in this like playthrough, they all talk about how it's this great bar or whatever, but none of them have ever been to it. And they have no idea what it really is or why they're promoting it, but it must be amazing, right? And it's so reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII with the Turtle Paradise.
Yeah.
Collecting the Turtle Paradise posters, and, you know, you never actually go to Turtle Paradise, which is supposed to be this famous Wutai bar, and you never go. There is no Turtle Paradise. I mean, I don't know. I guess I never tried hard enough to do that side quest to know if there actually is a Turtle Paradise, but I don't think there is. I don't think it goes anywhere. I think it's just the flyers everywhere.
That's too funny.
So yeah, it was good.
So yeah.
So, story, I gave it an 8.
Me too.
You know, again, it was good, but it had some core stuff that I feel like could have been better.
I mean, story overall was still decent.
Yeah.
It was worth
playing.
through.
Yeah, agreed. Graphics, it's just as good as the main game. I can't say I noticed it being that much better from, like, the PlayStation 4 version, which is not what we're reviewing. We're not reviewing the upscale from the PS4 version. It's really just the Yuffie stuff. But a lot of it takes place in Sector 7 or in the Shinra building. Granted, there's like 2 dungeons, if you want to call them dungeons. There's 2 areas that you progress through that are similar to the main game, but they're not. They're different. They're different platforms. It's like they reused the assets, but like strategically, so that they seem like different areas.
They weren't like, it didn't appear overly recycled.
Right? Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Some of the monsters were a little bit. All of the monsters were pretty much the same as the main game.
But that makes sense.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're in the same area. Of course, they would be the same.
I mean, we're playing DLC,
right?
So
I fully agree.
I loved Yuffie's movements, playing as her, even just watching cutscenes of her. She's very fluid, very light.
She's fast.
Yes.
When you're running with her, she is like lightning on her feet. Her moveset is really cool. She throws her weapon and then she does like magic to her weapon to cast it on the enemies. And like that concept is really neat. And it's beautiful. I mean, concept aside, and that's more gameplay, but like it's really cool to see her doing these actions and the magic that she's casting on the enemy. It's a cool concept. And the way that she like walks over rails and she holds her hands out and she's running over the rails. It's so cute.
She was wearing this like Moogle like cloak, I guess. And that was really cute, but it was so distracting every time you get a sharp edge catching, like, and waving a little strange. That was so distracting to me.
Really? I really liked that she was wearing that for the first half. and then she had the like wardrobe change / reveal
a cutscene
in the second half, and I loved that. I thought it was like, oh, there she is. Yeah, oh my gosh, I loved that too. Oh man, they really did her character justice, if not better, because in the main game in the original Final Fantasy VII, Yuffie had like very little story. She had very little spotlight. She had like no character development or character hardly at all. And then like you get this, and I feel like I really like Yuffie now. Like she's cute, she's energetic, she's she's kind of the Riku, from Final Fantasy X, the Final Fantasy X Riku version. It's basically the same character, just reskinned.
What'd you give graphics?
Oh, graphics, I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Oh, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I couldn't justify the 10 out of 10. Like, they didn't go... like I said, with, like, the ending, like, of the pillar falling, I feel like we could have seen more dramatic...
Yeah, for me... Like, obviously it's good because it's still Final Fantasy VII and the remake and all that. It looks beautiful. But, like, the stuff that was unique to the DLC wasn't enough to justify more than, like, an 8 for me. They could have added a few more unique monsters. I mean, they had a couple, like, the deep ground stuff was all unique. They had a couple unique bosses that were okay. But, like, there wasn't anything that stood out to me as, oh my gosh, this is amazing, Like, the fight with Nero was, like... cool, but it was really just mostly glitter.
Yeah. I will say, I was surprised there was blood.
There was. I
was very surprised, because I feel like one of the main reasons in the main game that they used the glitter for Genova was because they didn't want there being blood everywhere.
Yeah, the, like, purple goo.
Yeah. So, speaking of monsters, if you don't mind segueing into gameplay.
No, that's fine.
There was like one or two. I didn't write this down initially because I feel like it might have been avoidable because we weren't using our equipment properly, because we were passing off the controller. And I think just upgrading our equipment kind of just was not thought about, I guess.
Well, hang on. Let's back up a little bit. We played Final Fantasy VII Remake quite a while ago, when it was first released. And to play the DLC quite a few months later, I've forgotten how to play the game entirely. And there is no, like, tutorial, but it's essentially the same gameplay mechanics as the remake. It's just, like, Yuffie instead. So they expect you to just know this stuff, and we struggled for a while to, like, get back into the groove.
I did... maintenance on our weapons at one point.
Yeah, I remember.
Before we realized at the end when we started struggling, we're kind of... maybe we should look at our equipment. And there's, like, no upgrades been done. We haven't swapped our materia out. We haven't really... And I have no excuse because I did do some of that stuff at the beginning.
Right, no, I think that what we did at the very beginning was enough. Like, it got us to the final boss, and then the final boss was like, we struggled with him a little bit, and then, like, we upgraded it. We upgraded our materia and our weapons and everything, and we were overpowered.
What I wanted to talk about was I was having problems with two different bosses, personally, for me, where... You would fight this boss. You'd say you'd have to cut off an arm or destroy an arm. Actually, I think both bosses I'm thinking of, you have to cut off an arm to be able to hit the main body. And then the main body does some, they do some stuff, and then they regenerate that arm or something else happens, and you've got to put it all down again before you can actually finish off the boss. Except I had to do that, like, 5 different sessions.
I think you're just really bitter about that projector fight.
It's not even that.
In the simulator.
Not even just that one. There was Scarlet too.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And did you
fight Scarlet? Or you did?
And once was fine. But the second time, I was kind of irritated about that because I didn't want to be it wasn't like there was any new, like, mechanic added or any new phase. It was the same boss. I just have to do the same set of things again. And which brings me to my next irritating moment of wasted limit breaks. you cast your limit break, it should automatically let you use that limit break. Instead, two or three different times, I used my limit break, and then like the monster would go into its other phase again, or Scarlet in this case, I'm thinking of. And there's Yuffie doing her limit break to air.
Yeah, we ran into that a few times where, you spend all this time building your limit break, and then, it's just like shot. And that does. It hurts really, really bad. The projector fight was BS, though.
Yeah,
like the projector fight, basically you had like an overpowered boss. Oh, I overpowered in air quotes because we were underleveled. But this overpowered boss that you had to fight, and as soon as you killed him, you have to fight the projector. And the projector really is the boss, but you can't attack it unless the boss, the projection is dead. And then you can attack the projector itself. But the projector is got really high defense or something, and he's really difficult to take down. So you get a third down, and then he just regenerates that projection, and you gotta fight it again. And you basically, I think you only fought that boss once, but you basically had to fight it 3 times because every time you took it down, it would just regenerate itself again, and then you had to do the whole thing over again. It was BS.
That was.
It felt like
cheap.
It felt like
a cheap.
They were trying
tactic.
to stretch the game out, and this was a cheap way of doing that.
Again, I don't know how much of that was because we weren't maintaining our equipment.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we were holding our own just fine. It just was irritating because it just was a time filler.
Yeah.
And of course, for us, you were coming over to visit, so it was just time was, we wanted to utilize our time, not waste it fighting an arm.
Yep.
Despite that, I still gave gameplay kind of a high score, though.
I gave gameplay an 8.
I gave it a 9.
Okay.
I still really liked Yuffie's, the fluidity of fighting as Yuffie, how quick she is. It's very... It makes gameplay easy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I really liked the added, the way she climbs the bars and stuff, when you're trying to get from one area to another in, I don't know where we were we were in, some yard of,
at the very beginning.
Yeah. And she's able to climb up the bars and run along the side. It was just very, satisfying.
Yeah, her movements were very fun. It made me feel cool controlling her because she was so fluid in her motion of climbing and moving, and I want to talk about something that really hurt me about this game.
Oh no.
The Fort Condor minigame.
Oh yes. How could I forget? Oh my gosh.
I know. So
I'm changing my score. I'm not even joking. I'm knocking it down a point.
Boom, boom, boom.
I'm hurt too. I am hurt too. I must have just completely blocked it from my mind. In fact, I did because I just didn't play it. And it was, just talk about it. I just can't.
So,
my blood pressure.
So in Final Fantasy VII, the original game, you could do this mini game where you're protecting Fort Condor from an approaching Shinra army, and it's really designed to be this defend the castle type mini game where you place all your pieces on the board, and then the army slowly crawls towards the top, and you have to defend Fort Condor. And in the original, this was completely optional. You had a chance to play twice. You could play it as soon as you leave Midgar, and then you can play it later where you could actually get the Condor turned out to be a Phoenix, and you get the Phoenix materia from that. But it's completely optional. They've taken that concept and turned it into a mini game for this DLC. The idea is cute, but I hated the mini game in the original, And when I played it in this, it was like, yeah, it looked pretty, and the idea of it being a board game is interesting, but I still didn't like to play it.
I felt like it was super tacky the way that they placed these hot characters. I mean, like, important characters
From the main game.
Like, you've got Roche, I think his name's Roche,
Yeah.
from one of the soldiers that you fight in the main game, and he's over there wanting to play a mini game with you, and it's just like, why?
That's
weird.
probably my biggest pet peeve with this. It really has nothing to do with how good or bad the minigame itself is. It's really that you've taken opportunities of dialogue away from these characters to play this stupid minigame. And I wanted nothing to do with it. Like, as soon as this was coming out, I'm like, no, I don't want to play this. And then they force you to play it once. They're like, no, you're going to try this out. You're going to love it.
You're going to try it. Once you try it, you'll love it.
The other part that I have that's a little less of a pet peeve and more of just a nitpicking a little, the Fort Condor concept in the main game, or in the original game, was that Fort Condor is under attack by Shinra, and you are putting money in to help provide protection to Fort Condor. And, you get rewarded for that or whatever, and you get to play this minigame. But that's like a critical thing for Fort Condor, and you're converting that like Shinra was like, you know what this needs? A board game.
But that would be pretty much like them making a board game out of like the War of Wutai.
Yeah, it
so
seems
tacky.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, that's totally something Shinra would do, but it just seemed really weird. It seemed out of place. I don't know.
You don't want to say it's insensitive because it's just a video game, but it is kind of like that's a serious thing. Like,
I mean, to be
were
fair,
dying.
it was still a mini game in the original too, but I don't know. It wasn't all that fun in the original. It's not all that fun in this.
Yeah.
Some people may have loved it.
It wasn't
I didn't
but-
like it. I just thought it was stupid
Not
and
only
boring.
that, but like the characters were like, "You can't beat me. I'm a pro." Like the game just came out, by the way. You didn't know anything about this in the main game. It came out while you were out doing stuff. No one was out there like, "Do you want to play Fort Condor?" Like the plane just fell.
Yes. Yeah, it was stupid.
Yeah.
What's funny though is like the Happy Turtle stuff I thought was a lot of fun. So like you had to go around and collect all the Happy Turtle flyer posters, and once you collected them all, you got like a special prize or whatever from the Happy Turtle guy, old snapper or something like that.
I realized that they really wanted to make use of the minigame that they took time to put resources into. It's just, I think if they had just made it subtle, it wouldn't have been as inferior. Like, if you walked by, you could get regular character dialogue, and then it's like, oh yeah, I do have a board game. Do you want to play? Not, you want to play? I'm the best pro there is out there. You can't beat me.
And it's like these characters that you want to get dialogue from, and then you walk up to them, they're like, I really want to play this game with you. And it's like, no!
They would not do that in the original game. No, you better believe that we're not going to be playing a board game with Roche after we've just had that motorcycle race.
I know.
Stupid.
Yeah. Agreed. So 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for you?
Absolutely.
All right. Music.
We both liked this one song that played in the background, which was a play on her original.
Yeah, it was like a remake of Yuffie's theme from the original game, and it was great.
Yeah,
but like, like that was it. Like the rest of everything else was pretty much the same as the original. Yuffie's voice actor was great.
And see, that was the problem I had rating this, because I feel like I rated it high. I really did like that song, like you did, and I don't know. There's really not much to say because we did play the original game. It's all the same amazing songs that are in there. There wasn't a whole lot, but every song was appropriate for when it was playing. Like, you got some nice, cool boss battle music and stuff. But
they had the Happy Turtle songs too.
Yeah,
that was kind of fun.
It was cute.
I don't know. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I gave it a 9 out of 10.
It was like...
There's nothing was terrible. Nothing
Yeah.
at all was bad, so...
I think that was my thing, is they... Like, their highlight was Yuffie's theme. And they did that beautifully.
Yeah.
It was great. But, like, everything else is just like... Hey, can we do something else?
Yeah.
Like, something fun? Like, anything else? I don't know. But, yeah, I mean... Yuffie's voice actor was great,
Yeah,
spot
absolutely.
on. She was amazing.
I even
Honestly,
like Sonon's voice, too.
yeah, he was alright. Honestly, all of the voice acting,
Yeah, absolutely.
for the Final Fantasy remake as a whole, I'm sure we talked about it before, but all of the voice acting was really
Yeah.
good, really, really well done.
Yeah.
Overall,
9 out of 10?
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
You know, I felt like the whole game was like good.
You know,
Could be amazing. Like, if they'd have just pushed it a little bit harder, it could have been a lot of fun.
that
But
said, though,
it was good.
my expectation was very low.
Oh, yeah, that's
To
true.
guard my
Yeah.
own little tiny frail heart. My expectation was low. I'm glad we played this. It exceeded my expectation for it, and I definitely think that if you're playing the 7 remake because you're a hardcore or just even a casual fan of the original
Mm-hmm.
series, it's worth playing if you can get a hold of it.
I agree. And that's probably the biggest problem with this is it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to get a hold of. Not because the game is rare, but because the system is rare. It's getting a little bit better as time is going on. We're seeing a few more pop up here and there. But yeah,
It
it's really hard to get your
sucks.
hand on the
It
system.
sucks that they had it strictly for PlayStation 5,
Yeah.
especially because things were so hard to get a hold of. But
But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. The game was worth playing. And it's short. We only put like not even 8
Yeah, not
hours
even 8
worth
hours.
of the game.
which is decent
I mean,
DLC.
you could do more. You can fight Rama. That was
Yeah.
kind of cool. I fought Rama. He was pretty easy, especially after we beat the game and we went back. But I mean, it's cool that he's in the game and you can play with him. That's really neat.
you can play Fort Condor with
You
Chad
can,
too.
Yeah, that would be yeah.
Why not even Rama at this point?
Rama's like, I'm the god of thunder.
but also, do you want
also-
to fight me at Fort Condor? You're gonna lose. You can't beat me.
Oh no. Oh my gosh. Well,
yeah.
that gives me a total of 40 out of 50.
That gives me 43 out of 50.
And
which-
that's a 8.3 out of 10.
that's yeah.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, again, good game. Could be a little better, but like, no complaints. I
Yeah.
had fun. How much is this game? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I didn't even buy it. Actually, I think it was free.
Was it free?
Because we updated because we got the PlayStation 5, and I think when you update you get that part free, I think.
Oh,
I think.
so. I could get the game then.
Yeah.
Because I have the I have the PlayStation 4 version. In any case, good game, worth playing if you can, if it's available to you, worth checking out. Our next game right now is scheduled to be Metroid Dread.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I'm planning on streaming it starting this week. So if you want to check that out, you can check us out. It's twitch.tv/ZapNight. And then Zap Chats is coming up too. We're going to be talking about something. I don't know. We never really know until that
Nope.
episode
Sometimes
starts.
it's just us talking.
Sometimes we sit down and we're just like,
What are we talking about?
But yeah, guys, thank you all so much for listening. Hope you had a fun time listening to us ramble on about a video game you may or may not have played. And yeah, we will see you guys next time.
Bye.